something I remember something about the mural. This would be the mural in what's that guy's name? The Nemesis office.
Domino.
Domino. The mural on the ceiling of Domino's office is there was something. I think it maybe that that angle wasn't planned or something in the game, and then whoever did the textures for that room put this crazy mural on there, and so it was like, oh, we have to show the mural. We have to get that up there. I remember there was some sort of fiasco around that mural.
Usually it's the other way around. Yeah. Usually artists put a bunch of beautiful work into something, and then someone turns the camera the other way and doesn't show it.
Right, exactly.
This line that he says a lot actually comes from the old IT guy at LucasArts, where we'd say, hey, the server's down. He goes, the server's not down. It's never down. You just can't get to it right now.
This is one of the scenes where we had Tony and Maria Canals in working together, and they're both from Cuba, and they both had worked together before they were cast in Grimm. So it was kind of fun to get the two of them together again and play off of each other, which is, of course, the way you'd like to do any game.
I realized how weird it was that he gets locked into a room by his boss, which I don't think is legal.
But you know, back in the 30s, you could do all kinds of stuff. You know, rubber hoses for cops and so on. You know, I mean, it was just 50 years after the Old West.
Well, that's weird to think about.
Yeah.
Oh, the secretary has a dual identity. It's always lots of fun. Always lots of fun with dual identities.
Yeah.
I like that Eva gets to have a little, like, she's got more going on than you thought she did.
I love that too, and I like that there's something fishy in the Department of Death too. That's a good twist.
I used to work at a doctor's office, and one of the jobs that I was doing, just terrible jobs there, and one of them was the roof was covered in like 6 inches of pigeon guano up there. They had a flat roof, like the roof of this building, and they're like, look, we got to get that stuff off the roof. It's going to break the roof. There's so much pigeon crap on the roof. And I had to go up there with like this flat shovel and cut. It was kind of like cutting brownies out of a pan.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just chopping up the bird poop and just scooping it up and throwing it off the roof. And but in chopping it up, I occasionally find like in sedimentary rock, like an archaeologist or a paleontologist, I would find the bones of a dead pigeon just inside this weird brownie of guano on the roof.
Wow.
So I had my fair share of bad jobs.
So this was really a kind of therapy to get that.
Yeah, but I'm really just not
experience.
enough poop on the roof to make this really.
Well, it's hard to indicate that with the technology of the time. Kind of just like if you did wind in a 8-bit game, it just sounded like and just sounded bad, you know.
At least I got to clear the pigeons from the roof of my memories.
That line right there, love is for the living. I'm only after her for one reason. She's my ticket out of here. That was the key line that Tony and I would always go back to that kind of identified who that character was. The idea with Manny being a Hispanic Humphrey Bogart, that line evoked Casablanca in many ways, and that was kind of just we worked on that line more longer than we should have, but it was just one of those that we just felt was important to kind of nail and help define Manny.
And you could see Pete's musical treatment of it. He kind of suspended the music and had this little classical guitar melody that had a feeling of being like a pocket in time to further highlight that line.
Right.
Yeah.
I always like Glottis because he's just so pure in his. I mean, he's by definition pure in that he's just the spirit of driving, kind of like he was summoned from the land itself, and he has nothing but a desire to drive and go fast, and all his motivations are about like moving at high speed. He almost dies because he's going too slow at some point, and he has to go fast again to come back to life.
Right.
But he also obviously cares about friendship and Manny and. A very loyal character.
We coined a phrase called McConnellian ambience, and meaning Pete McConnell. His style of ambience, where you have a little idea and then a completely different idea, and then a completely different idea, just sort of sequenced, and the texture would get kind of big, and then it would get very small with a solo clarinet, and then something completely different would happen, and then you'd get a little bassoon. And so these ideas would waft in and out like clouds or just passing notions. And it's a great way to keep the listener entertained but not get in his way. And so we termed that a McConnellian approach to ambience.
This is me playing with my own worst fears. I was realizing while we're making this game, I just randomly was thinking about how nice it is that spiders can't fly. Mm-hmm. You know, with spiders are kind of icky, but they're on the wall. You can stay away from them. Don't go in the garage. Don't get firewood ever. You can stay away from spiders, but what if they could fly? What if you had to, instead of like a bee buzzing around you or something, you had to worry about like there's a black widow. Like, wouldn't that be creepy? So we made flying spiders in the game. Some of the things that we came up with for this game, like the Petrified Forest. Well, Petrified Forest is right out of a Bogart movie. Right. That's coming from the name of a Bogart movie.
And he's actually a gangster.
A bad guy. He's a bad guy in it, yeah. But having these little things pumping it, I don't know where this came up with. Like, I feel like in games now we try to make things kind of make sense. Like, oh, you go to a gas station, something you know that exists. But here, it's a weird hydraulic pump factory with a counterweight on top of it for sucking something out of the marrow out of these trees.
Oh, right.
But it was all worth it because it was satisfying to see Glottis spin around on the top of it.
I like the environmental message myself.
I remember in this room, as in several others, Julian, we used a sound ambience that we recorded using a contact microphone on various machines, like Coke machines, and other vibrating devices or machine-like devices that produces a kind of interesting hum. And if you put your ear up against a Coke machine, or I was just on the Golden Gate Bridge last week and I stuck my ear up against one of those, 300, 200 foot pylons, and it's amazing the resonances that are going on in those type of resonant bodies. And we would record things like that and turn them into ambiences for some of the rooms.
I still remember writing a big justification about tank controls when I was pitching this. People were like, let's make it so the controls are more like Mario, where you push it. No, point and click. I was thinking tank controls I thought were superior to point and click at the time, because when you're pointing and clicking, you're distant from the screen, and the screen is this other thing that you're interacting with at your fingertips.
Right.
But when you're doing tank controls, you feel like you are in the center of the character.
Right.
And the world is rotating, the world's rotating around you. And so when you think, instead of going, I want to go on the left of the screen or I want to go to the right of the screen, you're saying, I want to look at the thing to the left of me and the thing to the right of me. Mm-hmm. And now, I don't know if that was necessarily the right decision, but it's a good piece of evidence that you can sometimes make a really good argument for the wrong decision, and that's something to watch out for in life. You know what I mean? Like, you can make a really compelling and in fact win an argument.
Oh yeah.
And be totally wrong.
Winning an argument has nothing to do with being right, that's for sure.
Exactly. It's just being able to make a good case.
This one was
How could you ever cut this?
I know, but programmatically it was buggy.
Oh, yeah.
And it was hard. No one understood like how to solve this puzzle for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, look, you got to pick something, and we hadn't started it yet. And so this is a classic Tim technique. When you want to cut something, he will start putting it in the game.
Yeah.
So that everything gets in. So, yeah, funny.
This scene, actually, this is the beavers here, another good example of why you have to have coroutines in games, because you at least in adventure games, you have to have like a script that just says, how's this beaver going to behave? What's he going to do? And at the time that people were making games, the scripting languages weren't popular yet. You had a lot of games in C, and somebody would be trying to write in their game engine, in their game loop, and go run the beavers now. And in a scene like this, you had to be able to take that and say, this is how a beaver behaves. Right now, I'm thinking like a beaver. How would a beaver? He's going to crawl over here, and he's going to chew on these things, and then he'll get tired, and then he'll jump over here. Mm-hmm. The same thing with the pigeons and everything else. And that, again, it's like I didn't have to think about the fact that they were needed. They were obviously needed. I mean, that's one of the things that Scum had made very obvious. Like, you cannot make adventure games without coroutines. Mm-hmm. They didn't even call them coroutines, though. I mean, we didn't even know what to call them for a long time until,
Threads.
They were just threads, yeah. And actually, that was one of the early experiments. I actually tried to make use actual Windows threads, because this is a Windows game. It wasn't a DOS game. This is a Windows game. We can use actual threads. And I initially did try and actually have different Lua threads. And it was just so heavyweight. Machines are so tight, and it was so much overhead, and it was so complex. And it was like, no, we need something lightweight. It needs to be really focused on what the game does.
We were like, what is the flame source for the beavers? And they're like, well, they have a core. They have a nuclear core, so they're thermonuclear flaming bone beavers.
Yeah, I have to say, flaming bone beavers. I mean,
you would think that would
be controversial. What does that remind you of?
A band name?
Maybe, yeah.
Well, this is the area that Tim and I would make a lot of jokes about because, producer type person, I need to shorten the game, cut it somehow. So this area, I would, say, hey, we need to cut the beavers. Does that make sense?
He's like, no way, not cutting it.
Oh, well, the whole time we'd fight about it, and it was that one kind of thing where that was the story I told a little earlier about the ship, and he said, Leslie, a game is like a ship, and the ship is going, and it's going to keep going until it stops. And I was like, what kind of logic is that? It has to finish at some point. So I was like, look, the beavers got to go, and they'd always be on the list. And he actually drew me a little pictures on a napkin of like the armadillo, the beavers on fire. And he's like, why did you cut me, Leslie? Please don't cut me, Leslie. And he would just poke me.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
This is like a callback to those brave young men and their jaunty jalopies. You ever seen that movie? Those outrageous young men, their flying machines.
That I remember.
There are these two crazy movies from the 60s which were all about, it was kind of like the Wacky Races, but a real-life version.
Magnificent. The flying machines.
And it was like one of those movies, it was kind of like Wild, Wild, Wild World or whatever. Like
a Mad
World, where all these people are chasing some crazy prize, but the cars in it always had things like that. I think that is a direct lift. Like one of the cars would have these hydraulic shocks that lifted up, or just crazy extending things.
Right.
The character Celso is played by a really funny actor called Peter Lorre, and when he came into the studio on the first day, he had this real look of apprehension about him, and it turned out the word in Hollywood was that Grim Fandango was code name for Star Wars Episode 1 casting. So when he was coming in for the project, people were telling him, you're going to be going in and George Lucas is going to be there and they're going to be flying you up to the ranch. And he was terribly disappointed when he walked in, and the only person in the studio was me.
I really wanted to have this moment of Lasco bonding with Glottis, through the magic of cars, and talking about engines and stuff. And cars bring people together, talking about engines.
Plus,
because I never had sports.
Internal combustion.
I never liked sports. I was not into the manly unifier of sports. But
me neither.
But cars you can talk about with the toughest of dudes.
That's true. That's true.
And just the amount of research that went into all of this, because I just remember Tim going to every film noir movie ever, and we would just all the time there would be something to do, and he's like, want to go to the movies? And it was just, I mean, you can see it, the dark shadows, and then the music. I mean, everything is just so film noir and really pulls you in.
Yeah, I remember us all going to see Casablanca, and I think it was in the Castro Theater or something. It was one of those old San Francisco theaters. I forget which one it was, but it was, the whole gang of us went. And
yeah, remember, did you guys go to the Golden Gate Fields for the horse races? I know they weren't.
I wish.
That was part of it, because I think there were some scenes around that, and that was just fun. I mean, just the research trips.
Yeah,
those were fun.